Working Cows Podcast, episode 203.
Welcome to the podcast that gives producers a platform to discuss and share paradigm-challenging practices. Practices that have increased the effectiveness of their operation and the joy that their families have received from this lifestyle.
Howdy, everybody. It's Clay Connery, host of the Working Cows Podcast, powered by the Global Ag Network, here with another one of our Stoneville stories for you today. This is Stoneville story number 2. We're joined today by Hugh Ingalls, or I had an opportunity to go and once again sit down at a kitchen table and just record some history and understand some of the experiences and the challenges and the successes, and just capture some of that history and receive some notes from people who've been inspired to do the same thing, and that's a great thing. I think it's awesome. Hopefully continues to see some folks around the country capturing some of the history of their region and some of their area, and willing to share some of that through this feed if anybody wants to share their recordings, or if you need help figuring out how to record. I've helped a few people, 4, 5, 6, I don't know, start their own podcasts, and I'm happy to help. Anytime, any subject you want to start a podcast on, pretty much I'd be willing to help you get it off the ground and give you some pointers. So just reach out to me and we'll get you pointed in the right direction. But if you need help recording some history from your region with some of the people who experienced it and lived it, I'd love to help you. And if you want to share it through this feed, I'd love to do that too. So just reach out to me and we'll get her done. But for now, happy to share with you my interview with Hugh Ingalls. I guess where I wanted to start was, how did your family come to be connected to the land that we're on right now?
Well, maybe I should start at the beginning.
Yeah, that'd be great.
In the spring of 1908, my dad's older sister, who was 10 years older than he was, when she was 21, she came out here by herself to Homestead. After she got located, she went back and got her mother. She filed on an adjoining piece of ground. You know where Charlie White's place is?
Where Roger is today?
No.
Okay.
Down the road.
Okay. I guess I don't.
South of that schoolhouse.
Okay.
That quarters.
South of Royal Center?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
That quarter was Charlie Weiss's.
Okay.
He was a land agent, so he located everybody around. Anyway, he ended up with some ground and went back Minnehaha County and brought my grandfather out here. He'd already homesteaded down there. They brought him out here, and that was in October of 1908, which was a cold, wet fall. They come out to Wall on the immigrant train with their stock and stuff they had. Got in a big flood down there on the Cheyenne River, and eventually come up across with their teams and to where my grandmother and aunt were located, and wasn't a tree in sight. My granddad looked around and said, well, if the horses weren't so tired, we just turn around and go back. Did
the Ingalls, or was it Ingalls that were coming up then? Your grandma was an Ingalls? Or your
grandfather was an Ingalls,
yeah. And so you said your dad's sister was the first one to come out, and then she brought her mom, your grandma, and then your grandpa came later?
Yeah, that same year, but later in the year.
Sure. Was it different, the same for women to file, as far as it was the same?
Yeah.
Back then? So.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And were they from Minnehaha County, which is Sioux Falls?
Yeah.
That's where they were. They had homesteaded there?
My granddad homesteaded there. And Beth and I were back there a couple of weeks ago to a family reunion. It was on the quarter he homesteaded.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. And where was the the quarter they homesteaded here, your great aunt or your aunt, I guess, was that?
Well,
where was that at?
just the other side of Charlie Wise's place.
Okay.
Where the road goes east to the Opal Church.
Okay.
One of them was on the north side, and the other was on the south side.
Okay.
After my uncle homesteaded the quarter up by the schoolhouse, he and my aunt married, and so my aunt and my grandmother swapped quarters, so theirs would be close together. So my aunt had the one on the south side, and then later she filed an additional desert claim on the next 2 quarters to the south.
What does that mean? What's a desert claim?
I know that they were required to plow up some little 5 or 10 acre plots and build some dams and irrigate out of them. And I can still show you one of the dams has still got the ditches out of it. Most of them been farmed over.
What was the country like when they got here? I mean, you mentioned there wasn't a tree in sight. Not much for fences either.
No.
Probably no fences.
No fences.
What was required? Did they have to build a fence to homestead it, or did they build fences then? Or
I don't remember about the fence part of it. They might have had to fences an area, but probably not the whole thing.
Yeah, just a claim shack then. A claim shack, it would be.
Yeah.
And they were living out here.
When they come out here that first fall, they put up a tent, and my granddad and Uncle Charlie, that'd be Charlie Weiss, Claire's dad, they went to Sturgis and got a load of lumber and come out and build a 16-foot square house. Tents aren't too bad to live in the wintertime. You got to keep the fire going.
Right.
But they lived in that till they got the house built.
Lived in the tent till they got the 16-foot square.
Yeah, the first winter. Later they moved somebody else's claim shack, another 16-foot square, in and attached it to it.
Okay.
When I lived in it, there was 2 more little shacks hooked onto it for bedrooms.
Sure.
They'd moved in there.
Yep. What was it? I mean, the trip to town to get the lumber, was that a horse and a team and wagon? That would have taken quite a while, I would guess, because we're a ways from Sturgis.
You'd think so.
Are some of these roads around here in the original spots, like Stoneville Road and some of those? No.
I don't know when they were made enough to be called roads. But I have some township history when they built some of the roads and the bridges and so on.
Sure.
Of course, Faith was the closest town, but that was 2 years later.
Right.
It was 1910.
And we're nearly 40 miles from Faith here?
Yeah, we call it 40 miles.
Yeah. How did they get from down by Royal Center to here? What?
Well, in 1949, the guy that had this place had bought another place over by Sulphur, and it turned off dry, and he panicked and sold this one. My dad bought it. So that's the transition. Over the years, they've ended up with contingent borders. My dad and brother and I operated together, both places, and eventually my dad turned it over to my brother and I, and he took that part and I took this.
Sure. And the part that your brother had was where Rod is now? Is that right?
No.
Or where Tyson is?
Where Tyson is.
Okay.
The house up there that I guess nobody's living in it now. Where the barn is.
The white one.
That was the home place. And then down where Tyson lives, when my dad got married, they built a little house there for my grandparents. It eventually burned down, but that's where it was. It's where Tyson's house is. So it's just down the road.
What were some of your earliest memories growing up out here? Did you guys have black cattle from the start? What did they brought stock with them?
They brought a little stock with them. I don't know just how many. Not very many, I don't think. And my great-grandfather had bought a Angus bull in Illinois in 95, so what they brought with them, I don't know.
Yeah.
Not very many, I wouldn't think.
Right. You remember having black cattle from the start?
Yeah, but my memory don't go back only to about...
We're doing good.
Mid-30s.
Right. And you grew up there south of Royal Center, is that right?
Yeah.
Or east of there too?
East.
South
and east.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
The Royal Center, the original Royal Center School, set up here a mile west of the county road where you make that sharp curve to the south. That's where that schoolhouse set. Mm. It wasn't that big at that time, but my grandfather and Uncle Charlie jacked it up with wagon jacks and put it on a couple of running gears and hauled it down there.
Sure.
And then it was added on to twice down there. My dad went to school there.
Huh.
And I went to school there to the same teacher.
Where did she live?
She was Mrs. Patterson from over there where Tim Vig lives.
Oh, okay. What were some of those memories from school, from going to school and growing up there? Did you go beyond the 8th grade? Did you went to high school in Sturgis?
Sturgis, yeah.
Yep. And finished high school in Sturgis? I talked to Spud Lemmel too, and he told me a little bit about you guys traveled back and forth to school together.
Yep. When my dad went to school down there, I've got some history here that says that at one time there was 20-some kids in that school.
Wow.
Now they got them all in.
Yeah.
And part of them were Negroes.
Hmm.
Or, you know where Squaw Butte is?
Yeah.
There was quite a settlement east and south of there.
Hmm.
My first farm sale was a black family that sold out and was moving away.
That's what you bought, equipment from them?
My dad bought a mower and a team of horses. Mm-hmm. Took me over there the next day and had me drive him home. I was something over 4 years old.
But not much. Do you remember those days of kind of a family on many of the quarters around here, or was that slowed down by the time?
That is really slowed down by then.
Okay.
Where I lived, and down where Rod lives, that was my uncle, my dad's brother. And then there was Uncle Charlie's place, and there was Simmons' place down the creek here, and the Jenke place at one time. Hmm. They left in 36. That'd be the close ones.
What was a trip for supplies like? Do you remember how that worked out, or what that was like?
There weren't many of them that I went on. I used to go to Faith for supplies when they were still driving teams. Why, where you over there on the way to Faith, west of Faith, 10 miles, there's a lone tree off on the north side. Mm-hmm. And that was where little town of, I'll tell you in a bit. Anyway, there was a way station there, livery stable, and if they got a good start in the morning, they'd go to Faith, get their stuff, and come back that far.
Wow.
And stay all night. And if they got a late start, they'd go that far the night before and then go to Faith and back the next day.
Mm.
Edson.
Edson is the name of the town?
Edson.
Mm-hmm. And livery stable?
It was still operating in my earliest recollection.
Mm. And who would go? your mom and dad together, or just your dad, or?
I lost my mother when I was 9. But we were, by that time, we were driving cars, no pickups.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really remember any trips to town when my mother was living.
Okay.
I'm sure there were, but a lot of that I think I've blotted out of my mind. But we used to go to Sturgis, where my mother's parents lived, and we'd go there on Memorial Day, and probably go to Faith. Only times I remember going to Faith was to the sheep show, and that was the same as the stock show now.
Okay.
Weren't many trips to town.
Yeah. Were supplies ever delivered?
Not to my knowledge. Neighbors probably combined trips, but
Sure.
they used to trail stuff to Faith.
For the sale?
Stock to Faith, because it was the railroad come that far. They tell about trailing hogs to Faith.
I don't think you can move a hog anywhere, can you?
And later I know that some of them trailed sheep to Faith.
Yeah.
Cattle later yet, but my dad told about neighbors putting together a bunch of hogs and trailing them to Faith.
So there was no stockyards there, or I mean, there was no sale barn there.
No, there was stockyards, so.
Right. So, and I talked to David Paul too, and he told me about the commission, kind of the commission man would come around and make deals for cattle and stuff like that. Was that similar?
Yeah.
Back in those days? Here. He was talking about Iowa.
That didn't happen until in the 40s.
Yep. And that's when he was talking about the Iowa in the 40s.
There was the stockyards in Faith, but the sale barn come quite a little later.
The cattle were trailed to Faith and then weighed at Faith, or?
Probably just sold by the head.
Okay. Gotcha.
I remember there was a buyer come out from Newell, bought some stuff one year. Uncle Walter, that was my dad's brother, Rod's granddad. He tells about trailing horses to Newell that they sold.
Mm-hmm. Did this place have sheep on it to start with? Like, did your dad ever run sheep, or was it just cows?
It had sheep on it before we got it.
Okay.
This part of the place, I guess we never had sheep on. Just down the creek, we had sheep there at one time.
Can you share with me any memories from your, teen years through early married life, or any of the storms? When were you married?
Say that again.
When were you married? Don't want to put you on the spot.
1950.
All right, you know that.
June 1st, I can remember.
So, can you tell me about any of just kind of that time in your life of early married life? And
wasn't much social time. Roger's dad, Donald, lived over there. He was a bachelor at that time, so he spent quite a little time here. Some of the other further neighbors would come sometimes. We might go fishing down at the dam. And when I was growing up, we went to the Opal Church.
Mm-hmm.
Sit over there east of where the church is now, on the north side of the road, just northwest of the cemetery.
Mm. Yep.
That's where we went to church. I had some paperwork one time, but I didn't keep it. Where my dad and my granddad on the other side, which was Viggs, where they bought the lumber for that church over there. It was in the old house at home. I guess I was a little hesitant about taken what I wanted, but I'm regretting that now.
Sure. Yeah.
There was some newspapers.
Mm.
They were printed over here, just south of my driveway. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Disappeared.
Is it the blizzard of '49? Is that one of the ones that was memorable or remarkable?
Right.
Right before you got married.
Yep.
Were you running the place by then, or
No.
no? Your dad was still around.
I was going to school. Well, it wasn't in '49. I've got a story written about that.
Okay.
I was writing some of that stuff down like that, but I kind of got stopped. I haven't got started again.
Were you guys on this place when you got married?
We moved in here when we got married. There was a little house here, 14 by 16, with a kitchen lean-to on it. We started our housekeeping in.
Mm-hmm.
We added on to it in '59, I guess, when we got it filled up with kids.
When did you start selling bowls? Do you know?
My dad sold bowls as far back as I can remember.
Okay.
Just kind of continued on from that.
And the registration, I mean, all throughout, or was there a process of getting into the registered side of that, or?
I wasn't exposed to the registered part of it, of course, till early '40s. I've got some old papers from my dad's that went back further than that, I guess. But we only had a few headed. It wasn't a very big chore.
Right.
And we're back there again now. Yeah, my dad always sold bulls, just private treaty.
Okay. Yeah, I suppose the bull sales have always been done at the ranch or private treaty, because your bull sale was always here at the ranch.
Yeah, we've modified our sales a little bit to where it's not strictly private treaty anymore. We have an auction.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a combination. When my dad was doing it, why, they were all the same price, and
Yeah, right?
it was easy.
Yeah. Have the cattle changed in your memory? I mean, the way they look, the size and shape.
I suppose they're supposed to be better, but maybe not. They've changed. They've gotten bigger and more efficient. Bigger isn't always better.
Right. At your female sale, they had some stuff in the catalog about the pounds that have been weaned off of this ranch over the years as they've kept track of it. Was that an increased number of pounds weaned over on the same number of acres? Was that because of efficiency increases, or
genetics, selective culling?
Mm-hmm.
You didn't always make the right decision, but over the years it added up.
Right. How long were you doing that? The selective culling? How?
Well, we started with what they call production records in '56, I believe.
Mm.
And we started taking weaning weights and that sort of thing, and then we started the selective, and it works.
Did you guys put up a lot of hay when you were a kid?
Yeah.
How was that done?
Well, I remember cutting hay with a team of horses.
Yeah.
Raking hay. We didn't have a lot of cattle then. And you had to put up enough hay for a couple of teams, saddle horses, and then raise some crop, and the straw from that fed the cows.
Just filler. And would they graze?
Survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
Eventually, along in the '40s, when we started feeding some cake.
Mm-hmm.
That wouldn't have been until about '49, but didn't have any alfalfa. I remember cutting alfalfa with the team and a mower. just a little patch. My dad got started. And it's all hand work. You pitch the hay on the rack, and we did have a hay mow in that barn down there. So we pull hay up there with slings.
What was the sling like to pull the hay up?
Of course, there was a track in the peak of the barn. There was a couple of cross pieces. Slings were in two halves. Trip it in the middle and dump it. It was just wooden sticks with ropes on them that carried the hay. Saved a lot of pitching.
So it would go up there, and then did you pitch it down into the barn itself?
When you need it, as you needed it, yeah.
There was some mangers? Or?
There was holes above the mangers. One hole for each stall, horse stall.
Right.
And there was a couple of holes for the milk cows. If you had any better quality hay, well, the milk cows got that.
Sure. Similar process, just cut it and let it dry, and then come by and throw it onto the hay rack?
Yeah, we'd rake it in the windrows and then bunch it with a rake, and pitch it on the hay rack.
So there was a mound of hay out there. You'd drive by and throw it onto the hay rack. So you said, go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you if you were going to say something.
Pardon?
I didn't want to interrupt you if you were going to say something.
Oh, well, the winter of 44, that summer I mowed a lot of hay, and it was all raked it up, and then I went in there with a bucker and bucked it into big piles. Kind of topped it off a little. Never got it in a stack, and then we got 3 feet of snow and took a 4-horse team on a high-wheeled wagon and a couple good hard men to dig it out of the snow and haul it where you wanted it.
And were you hauling it to the cows then? Get them through it?
Yeah.
Was that the tough winter, 44? 44 was one of the hard ones?
Yeah. Yeah, we had 3 feet of snow, and it didn't blow as much. So there wasn't any bare ridges or anything. 49, it blew off, where you can kind of follow the ridges a little bit.
Sure.
It would be pretty debatable which one was the toughest. I suppose most people would say 49, so
okay,
more widespread.
What about fires or droughts? Do you have any fires or droughts? Any specific things stick out there?
Oh, I had my share of prairie fires, I guess. Fighting. Of course, in the 30s, it was dry, but I wasn't old enough to be real concerned about it. I remember the grasshoppers, and you couldn't see the sun for grasshoppers. When they moved out. That'd be all right. They were worse at other places than they were down there where we lived. Over the Patterson place, over where Tim Vig lives, they ate the paint off the buildings and the clothes off the clothesline.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Was that South Dakota's experience? You know, they talk about the Dust Bowl in Oklahoma. Was that kind of South Dakota's experience of that? Was the grasshopper?
Grasshoppers kind of come on the tail end of that. Like I say, I wasn't responsible
right
at that point.
Yeah. Because were you born in 29? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
barely.
Okay. So the oldest you were in the 30s was 11 or 10 or 11 at the end of the 30s. So.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
January 1940, I was still call me a 10-year-old. Because my birthday was the 29th of December.
Sure. How have things changed? I mean, you got any thoughts about how things have changed as far as ranching is concerned, or any of those? Just the different ways that we're doing things these days, or?
Yeah. Mechanized. Changed things. My dad had a 2236 International McCormick Deering. It was the only tractor we had at that to start with. And you had to be somewhat mature to swing the crank.
I bet.
Uncle Walter had a farm all, and we worked together, so we kind of changed equipment and worked together all the time.
What were the tractors doing back then? Was it all about making hay or putting up hay?
Yeah, we did some farming. Yeah.
Wheat, corn, what?
Yeah, wheat, oats, barley, corn.
Okay.
I cultivated corn with team.
Where at?
One row at a time.
Yeah.
Well, I remember a little field just east of my dad's house there, east of where Tyson did live.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little field there. It's crested wheatgrass now, but I cultivated corn on that field with the team.
Do you remember when crested wheatgrass came in?
Kinda. That's when my dad planted that field there.
Mm-hmm.
And for years you could see the tracks, the narrow front end and the wide back end, because it packed the ground and it grew better.
Right.
Yeah. For years you could see those tracks.
Huh.
In the 30s there, when the grasshoppers was so bad, I suppose it was the government made available grasshopper bait. It was sawdust treated with strychnine. And we used to get that in 100-pound bags and spread it with an N-gate seeder. I'd team horses. My job was to drive the horses. I guess it was bad stuff.
We don't know. Yeah, it's hard to tell what's good and bad anymore, you know?
Yeah.
It changes all the time. So you said that there weren't a lot of supply trips. Was it big loads when you did get it of non-perishable stuff, or what did you eat from day to day and store food and some of those things?
Kind of ate what you raised.
Right. And beef and potatoes and
Pork. And,
sure.
yep. My dad used to put pork down in the salt barrel and can the beef.
Mm.
Like canned beef is pretty hard to beat.
Yeah, that's just saying something after you grew up eating it. Some people grow up eating something, they won't ever touch it again, but if you still like it after you grew up eating it, that must be pretty good stuff.
But you go to some of these auction sales and somebody will bring some canned meat, kind of a donation deal.
Yep.
And it sells.
Right. Yep.
It's something you can go grab out of the pantry and heat it up and have it ready to eat in a half hour.
Right.
Somebody drops in, it's always nice to have. But we don't do it anymore.
Yeah. Do you remember getting electricity and some of those things?
REA didn't come in here after we was married, 51, 52. At home, we had a wind charger with batteries, and so we had electric lights of a fashion. Start with, they were just 6 volt. There's a little steel tower on top of the house with a wooden propeller on it, and charged the batteries. And you didn't use the lights if you didn't need to.
Just in the winter.
Just the wind didn't blow. Then we got 32 volt. That was better. It had more capacity. 16 glass jars instead of 3.
What do you mean 16?
Storage batteries for the electricity.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
You said they put pork down in the salt barrel. Was that like a ceramic crock then, or?
Yeah, part of it anyhow. I can't just remember. Yeah. He had a big stone crock.
Right. I remember somebody telling me one time that that was how they kept their pork. They'd cure it and then they'd put like a layer of bacon and then lard and then a layer of sausage and then lard and then kind of alternate that way. So you had some, as you pulled it out of there.
Yeah, with the salt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pack it with salt. Raise your own potatoes. You got meat and potatoes.
What else do you need?
I got it.
Keep some chickens around for eggs and stuff?
Oh, yeah. Fried chicken every day in the summertime.
Really? Well, take it out to the field with you? Have it for lunch? Or?
Oh, most times we had it at home.
Okay.
Hard to get good fried chicken nowadays.
I bet.
They got them so bred up to their drumsticks are all out of shape.
Right. Did you bring in any any animals kept around just for butchering, like a chicken, a broiler chicken, or a hog, or anything like that you would bring in the spring and butcher in the fall?
There was always a hog. Always some hogs ready to butcher. They had a derrick, three-legged, and a barrel for hot water. They scald them to take the hair off. Mm-hmm. That was a chore. You got a good job of scalding, it wasn't so bad, but you had to in and out of that hot water. If you got them too hot, my dad used to say to set the hair. I don't know what that is, but made them hard to scrape.
Sure. Were those pigs born on the place? You always just had some pigs around that kept year round?
My dad used to raise quite a few hogs. I don't remember so many when I was a kid, but like the time he got up into the 40s, he was raising quite a few hogs, hauling corn in. We used to plant corn and then hog it off in the fall.
Turn the hogs into it, or
Pardon?
Turn the hogs into it, or what do you mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Finish them quick.
Then in the 40s, they hauled those hogs to the packing plant in Rapid City, and they liked them big and fat because they were using that lard for ammunition. I don't remember the process now, but there was a demand for that fat. They used it somehow in their manufacture of munitions. I've forgotten.
Yeah,
How?
Never heard of it.
Yeah, you'll have to look it up on the internet.
Yeah, maybe.
Let people work together. Neighbors, work together, thrashing and.
Has this place expanded since you took it over, or was it about this size?
No, just keep that. It wasn't so big then. We've added on to it, yeah.
Gotcha. Was any of that connected to the 80s, or, I mean, did it grow during the 80s then, as people were moving out, or?
There's a big growth in the 30s, and I suppose in the 80s. For me, it was later than that, but.
Okay. The 30s, those were people who had tried to homestead and hadn't made it. And so these abandoned claims were around. Do you remember how you would take over somebody else's claim?
Some of them, they'd sell them before they left.
Okay.
Or they'd relinquish their rights to them. My dad filed on a relinquishment there across the road from where Tyson lives. The guy that homesteaded it relinquished his rights to it. My dad, Charlie, went to Rapid City to the land office and filed on him the day he was turned 21.
Your dad?
But there was a lot of them didn't get much for what they left. One family down the creek here, families had 6 girls, and I went to school with all but the oldest ones. But I remember we were coming out from Sturgis, coming out from Newell, and out on the gumbo east of Newell, we met them. They had everything they owned on the hay rack. Behind the team. They're leaving. They bought a little place by Newell and made it.
I suppose the irrigation was getting developed about that time.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Around Newell. Was that the reason why it didn't work for a lot of them, was trying to farm this country? Didn't work for them?
Well, there just wasn't enough acres
right.
in the original homesteads.
Yep.
Just wasn't.
Even back then, 160 acres wouldn't, with the number of, especially with the size of those families too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this country's always been able to support a cow for 8 or 9 days per acre or something like that. And not much more than that.
Even back there when they dried out and didn't have nothing, they still got together and had ball games. And I got pictures that homesteaders gave us that they had a ball game right out here south on this flat ground out south in 1911. Buggies sitting around and people sitting on the ground talking and watching, and then there was those little piles of biscuits. Wasn't nothing to cover them up.
It's too easy. I don't know if it's too easy to stay in the house now, or what keeps us from being so connected to our neighbors now. Do you have any?
It's a shame. It's not like it used to be.
Yeah.
We're still all right, but we're more independent and think we can do it by ourselves. Even neighbors that maybe didn't always get along, but times got tough and people got in need. They forgot all of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know that my mother's folks were the Vigs.
Right. I knew there was a connection there, but I wasn't. I always say I think you need a PhD in genealogies to figure how it all fits together out here.
You'd have to have something.
Something a lot longer history out here than I've got.
Well, like I say, my aunt married Charlie Weiss, and her younger sister married Charlie Weiss's younger brother.
Right. And those two aunts were both Ingalls, right? Yeah.
Okay, then two of Aunt Lizzie's daughters, Weiss, married two of my mother's brothers.
Vigs.
Yeah.
So Weiss brothers have married Ingalls sisters, and was it Weiss sisters have married Ingalls brothers then? Or Vig brothers?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. A lot of overlap at the family reunions.
It gets a little muddier yet.
Yeah.
Used to be a lot of double cousins.
Right. I'll have to go back and listen to this just to straighten out what I said to remember what it was. What was your favorite part of growing up here?
I suppose part of it's the freedom and part of it's the not having to worry about what you're going to do.
You haven't been bored?
I hate that word. I hear these kids say bored and it makes me angry.
Yeah. What do you mean by freedom?
I don't know when I was a kid whether I knew what I was talking about, but you went to school and you run up the flag every morning and said the Pledge of Allegiance, and Christmas time you had Christmas programs. My concern is that there's a generation coming that don't know the history of freedom.
Mm.
They don't know. I think we're all right in our schools here, but
Yep.
in the urban schools, they're being taught the wrong things.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of loving your country, they turn it the other way.
Right.
I'm concerned about that. Oh, I don't know. You didn't wonder whether you were going to go to Sunday school in the church or not. It'd be pretty drastic if you didn't.
Yeah. That decision was made for you.
Yeah. In fact, there was a time they started having services over at the old Opal Church. I guess they never stopped at that time. We used to go over there in the morning and go up here in the afternoon.
Mm.
That might have been a little much for grown boys, but we got to see our friends.
Yep.
Probably the only time all week you did see them.
Right. Drive a car to church mostly?
I don't remember. I got a picture in there. Been driving cars to churches for a long time.
Yeah. That's 1931, something like that. Is that right?
Before that.
Before that? Okay.
That's when that picture was taken, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah. That's the Prairie Home Church.
Right. Are you in that picture?
No.
No.
Glenn Haynes over to Faith come bringing that to me one day.
Oh, cool.
And I wasn't sure what I'd ought to do with it. Except preserve it.
That's a neat picture.
A lot of old cars there.
Yeah. A lot of people packed into that church too.
A lot of people packed around it, yep. Yep.
That would have been about the time that building was built. I think the plaque we got hanging in the entryway says 1931 to 1951, or 1931 to 1981 was the 50-year anniversary. So, pretty new building back then.
The church, the old Opal Church, might have been older than that, but I don't know that without doing some research. But it sat on ground that didn't belong to a church guy.
Oh, he didn't go to church there, right?
Well, I'm sure it evolved over the years.
Sure.
Who owned it when we built the church, I don't know, but later the guy that ended up with it didn't have any desire.
Mm-hmm.
And then they decided they want to, I guess they decided they wanted to get, so they owned the land where it's at.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't do it.
Mm.
So that's when they ended up building where they are now.
Sure.
And they sold the old church. It sits down there at Viggs.
Like where Dwayne is now? Or, okay. Gotcha. Huh.
They never did use it.
Yeah, I'll have to look for that.
But it's still there. But then, along in I'd say the early 40s, people kind of started migrating up here. I remember in church one day, I remember it very well. One of the fathers got up and said they were going to start bringing their family up here because they had a young folks group. And it kind of went from there, died out. And then when they wanted to revive it again is when they couldn't get control of the land and
Sure.
they decided to build.
And that was probably in the 60s, do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Has there always been a group of people meeting at the Opal Church even, before the 60s? Or did
There was a period of time when there wasn't any.
Right. Yeah. Because that's what I thought, that some people that came from Prairie Home Church in the 60s had helped get that going again.
Yeah, then there was a time when they shared the pastor too.
One of these old pictures of Prairie Home Church, there's a picture of a guy on a bike, or actually there's quite a few bikes in that picture, but one of them was the pastor, and the story I've always been told is that he rode his bike from Bison. He'd come down from Bison to do the service.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, that's a long ways.
I'm not familiar with that.
That's a long ways, and I'm sure Bixby Road wasn't then what it is today. So
I wonder if are they identified?
Not in that picture, but Eleanor Johnson's the one who tells that story. She probably heard it firsthand. I don't know.
Well, when I was a kid and we were going up there, it was a pastor that came from Bison, but he had a car.
Okay.
Reverend McElwee. I think he married my parents.
Yeah, when they dedicated the new building, I just found a folder from when they dedicated the new building at Prairie Home Church, and they had a list of all the pastors. I'll have to look back through and see when he was there.
He's as far back as I go.
Mm-hmm.
I know there was some before that. I can't remember their names.
Yeah, I don't remember any of the names, but I did look at that folder one time. Some of those guys were there for a long time.
Well, Morris Eliason was there a good many years. In fact, 2 different terms. He was there when I was a kid. Well, he was at the Opal Church when I was a kid. And then along in the 50s, after we were married, we were going to church up here. And he came back and served at church for quite some time.
Any of your kids go to school at Royal Center?
No.
No.
I got to think, no. See, this is a different school district.
Okay. Oh, sure. Yep, that's
This
right.
is
Yeah, Faith.
Marine.
Yep. So did they all go to Marine then? Okay.
Yeah, the township line is just south of here.
Right.
Not that it makes a whole lot of difference anymore, but
Right.
they didn't have school down there after our kids got school age. I think their last years down there was in 51, 52.
Sure.
Was the last years they had school down there. But my aunt that came out here first, before she was married, when the schoolhouse set up here yet, she rode a wooden wheeled bicycle up there to teach.
Wow.
And I think her youngest, only surviving daughter still has that.
Oh, wow.
We made sure she got it, and she had it fixed up somewhere. But I haven't asked her about it. She was here for that reunion back east. She lives in southern Montana, Dillon.
Okay.
I guess she's the only living child from that family. She was a little younger than I was, 4 years. She's getting pretty frail. One of the Yankee girls come from down the creek there, of those 6. I went to school with 3 younger ones of that family. And one of the older ones taught me when I was in that school, when I was in the 3rd and 4th grade, I guess. And I got reunited with her a few years ago. She lived in Rapid City, and I went to see her a couple times a year. Now, here in the last year or so, she's passed away. She didn't remember all the naughty things I did when I was.
That's good. Did she, or was school like a half a day, or go there in the morning and be done around lunch, or you were there all day?
All day.
Yeah. Did you ride a horse there sometimes, or?
I never did ride the horse. My younger siblings, some of them rode one time. The Simmonses from down the creek here, they drove a one-horse buggy cart. I walked. It was only a mile and a half.
Okay.
And in the wintertime, when Uncle Walter's family got in school, and he lived 3 miles away, so he'd pick us up with his car when he went by.
Sure. There were a lot more schools in the country back then. Oh,
yeah.
Squaw Butte, Sulphur, probably one at Fairpoint, Royal Center, Opal, Marine. And now, of all those I named, Opal and Marine are the only 2 still going. And the next closest one is Atoll, which is quite a ways, probably 30 miles from Opal to Atoll, I suppose. Or more.
Yeah.
Maybe more.
Yeah, there's still a few alive that went to school down there. Not very many.
Spud probably didn't come over. He was probably down at... Spud was probably at Opal? Spud Lemel? Is he probably at Opal?
He went to Sulphur most of the time.
Oh, right.
Then after he was up here, they started was going to come up here to Royal Center, but they ended up, the school south of Spuds there, Lucerne.
Oh.
Yeah, my dad was on the school board, and it had to be pretty tough. You didn't go to school.
Yeah.
He used to, I remember him taking us to school with a team in a bobsled in the 30s there.
Wow.
And he, underneath a cow robe.
Just a cowhide. Yep. Wrapped up. Get a couple of siblings in there with you and stay warm.
But he just didn't miss school.
Yep.
Now it doesn't take much.
No.
Sun goes under a cloud. Go home to school.
Did you ever get snowed in at the schoolhouse?
No, never did. Was always there with the team and the sled.
Yeah. Huh. Well, I've taken up an hour of your time. I appreciate it.
I got more time than anything else right now.
That last statement that Hugh made is the truth. I mean, these guys have time and they're willing to sit down and to talk. And if you're willing to sit down and listen, they will share their stories with you. And there are lessons to be learned. David and Spud are telling us, about what it takes to get started and some of those things. Hugh is, I think, really, and he lives it, the community connection. He's even to this day at various community functions and recognized by the community for his involvement over the years and investing in your community and making it a better place. And so just encourage you to take the time to go and learn from these founts of wisdom and learn from them and hopefully continue to pass on that kind of character and knowledge and wisdom to future generations. So possibly another one of these coming up next week on the Working Cows podcast. Not sure yet. If not, I do have another episode ready to go. But we'll see what direction we head, and we'll see you again real soon with another episode of the Working Cows podcast.
We invite you to visit workingcows.net to subscribe to the show via iTunes or Stitcher. You'll also find detailed show notes pages, resources from our guests, and the industry leaders who have influenced them. For more ideas on putting your cows to work for you in a more profitable way, tune in next week.